Guys, welcome back to another reading of David Williams' The Boy in the Dress. And now we're on chapter 18. 1,000 Smiles. Where the hell are they? Yelled Mr. Hartway at no one in particular. The second half was about to begin and Maldron Street were all waiting on the pitch, eager to finish their demolishing job. The school team was nowhere to be seen. Had they run away? Then suddenly Lisa stepped out of the changing room and held the door open. First Greta ran out wearing a gold lane ball gown. Then Darvish followed a yellow polka dot frock. Then the defenders were right behind in marching red cocktail dresses. The rest of the team followed in varieties of outfits from Lisa's wardrobe. And finally, Dennis came out of the dressing room in a pink bridesmaid dress. There was a huge cheer from the crowd. Dennis looked at Lisa, smiled. Go get 'em, kids! Go get 'em, kids! She said. As they ran onto the pitch, Mr. Hartway bellowed at Gareth. What on earth do you think you're doing, boy? You expelled Dennis for wearing a dress, but you can't expel all of us, sir, he shouted back triumphantly. All the boys in the team lined up defiantly behind their captain, striking poses like they were dancers in a Mormon video. The crowd went wild. This is a disgrace, bellowed Mr. Hartway. He stomped off angrily, brandishing his walking stick. Seat thing. Gareth smiled at Dennis. Come on, boys, let's do this, said Gareth. The Bruins referee blew his whistle before it fell out of his mouth. Within seconds, Dennis had scored a goal. Marlin Street team were in shock. They were still 6-1 down, but Dennis and his teammates were back in the game. Woo! Shouted Darvish as he pitched off his shirt and waved round a defender. Laughing, Dennis scored again. He was on his way to a hat trick, and he was 100 times happier than he had ever been. He was doing the two things he loved the most at once, playing football and wearing a dress. Then Darvish scored, sliding across the pitch, then adding a large grass stain in his flock as he sneaked the ball past the Marlin Street goalies. 6-3. My boy in the yellow polka dot dress has scored, shouted Darvish's mom. They were on fire. Dennis set up a fantastic cross from her Gara, who just had to tap it into the net. 6-4. Gareth, being Gareth, celebrated like this goal would be replayed forever on March of the day, doing 3 victory laps up the pitch and hitching up his golden lane ball gown as he ran. The crowd laughed and cheered. Then another goal followed, and another. 6-6. Now there were only a few more minutes left of the game to play. One more to go, and they'd have done it. Come on, Dennis, shouted Lisa. You can do it. Dennis looked over at her and smiled. It would be really cool if I scored now, he thought, especially in front of Lisa, my future wife. But at that moment, Dennis fell to the ground in pain. The crowd gasped. One of the Marlin strikers had nobbled him and kicked him right in the shin when he didn't even have the ball. Dennis lay there in the mud, holding his leg in agony. The referee had seen nothing. He's putting it on, ref, protested the Marlin Street boy, and the crowd booed. Dennis was trying really hard not to cry. He opened his eye in a vanished storm. Lying there, their grasp pressing into his cheek, he peered up at the crowd. Through the tears, he glimpsed a red checked jacket that looked very familiar. And then the red checked jacket turned into a man. And then the man shouted in a deep voice that was even more familiar. Oi! What are you doing on here? Dad. Dennis couldn't believe it. Dad had never come to see him play for the school before, and now Dennis was lying on the ground with his tears in his eyes, wearing a dress. He was going to be in so much trouble. But Dad looked at Dennis and smiled. Oi, Raph! She shouted, that kid kicked my son! Dennis rose to his feet. His legs were still growing with pain, but a warm feeling spreading through him. He steered himself, then smiled back over at Dad. You okay? Asked Darvish. Yeah, said Dennis. Come on, son, shouted Dennis's dad, really getting onto it now. You can do it! I called him at halftime, said Darvish, after what you said about your dad never seeing you in the match. I thought you wouldn't want him to miss this. Thanks, mate, said Dennis whenever he thought Darvish couldn't surprise him anymore. Couldn't be a better friend. He went ahead and did it. Darvish tackled the ball off the Margarine Street boys. Darvish ran up the outside and Garish passed to Magdalen Street, charged towards Darvish, and passed back to Garan. Garan panicked for a moment, then passed it to Dennis, who waved straight past the defenses before booting it right over the goalie's head and into the back of the net. The keeper didn't stand a chance. 6-7. The final whistle blew. It was all over. Yes! Shouted the crowd. Goal. Golney, shouted Dennis's dad. Dennis looked over and smiled. For a moment he thought he saw John's face in the crowd, but he couldn't be sure as everything seemed to blur in all the excitement. Garrett was first to go up and hug Dennis. Darvish was next. Within moments, then they were all hugging, excitedly celebrating their victory. The school had never even gotten the scenes before, and now they'd won the cup. Dad couldn't contain his excitement and ran onto the pitch. He scooped Dennis up into his arms and sat him on his shoulders. And this is my son, this is my boy, shouted Dad, helpless with pride. The crowd erupted with cheers again. Dennis smiled, 1,000 smiled. He looked down at Garan, Darvish, and the rest of the team, all wearing their dresses. There's just one problem, Dennis thought. I don't feel that different anymore. But he kept that thought to himself. And the end. That's the end of chapter 18. The next chapter is Dragged in the Mud. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye!